the silence before the screams. The galaxy was old, wide, and cold. It was ruled by ancient alien empires that believed they understood every danger among the stars. They mapped space with confidence and erased threats before those threats could grow. One such empire was the Valari Dominion. They were calm beings with silver skin and long memories. They believed order was the highest law of the universe. War was rare, controlled, and distant from their core worlds. On the outer edge of Valari space stood a quiet world named Keshtar. It was not rich, not powerful, and not important. It was a farming world where families lived simple lives under soft blue suns. Keshtar had no great fleets and no heavy shields. It trusted the peace promised by the Dominion. The end did not arrive with warning. There were no alarms, no signals, no cries for help. One moment, Keshtar existed. The next, it did not. The stars above the planet dimmed. A strange shadow moved through space, bending light and sound. Valari sensors did not detect ships or weapons. The attack was silent, clean, and perfect. Cities vanished without fire. Oceans froze in seconds. The planet's core cracked as if space itself had turned against it. Millions of lives ended without knowing why. A Valari observer station nearby recorded the event. Its watchers felt confusion, then fear. Nothing in their long history behaved this way. This was not war as they knew it. This was erasure. Within hours, the Dominion understood the truth. Something powerful had crossed into their space without permission. Something that did not announce itself. Something that did not care who lived or died. The Dominion reacted too late. Before fleets could move, before shields could rise, more worlds fell. Not many, but enough to send shock through their society. Each loss came without sound, without struggle, without hope. Fear spread faster than any signal. The Valari had always believed survival came from control and balance. Now balance was gone. Their greatest strength became their greatest weakness. In the chaos, the Dominion searched for patterns. They reviewed star maps and old records. That was when they noticed something strange. Beyond their borders, far from major trade routes, there was a cluster of small, quiet systems. The records named the inhabitants humans, a young species, divided and loud among themselves. Weak ships, short lives, and no real place in galactic politics. The Dominion had ignored them for centuries. They were considered harmless. Now those human systems were silent. Not destroyed, not attacked. Just silent. Valari leaders assumed the humans had failed on their own. Young species often did. The galaxy was cruel to the weak. It was not worth concern. But one Valari analyst felt unease. The silence felt wrong. Too complete, too deliberate. As the Dominion mourned Keshtar, they did not see the truth. The same shadow that erased Valari worlds had passed near human space. It had watched, measured, and moved on. The universe held its breath. The screams had not yet begun. And somewhere beyond the stars, a species believed to be small and unimportant was about to notice the silence. The Valari Dominion no longer trusted the stars. Every system skin felt like a lie. Every quiet moment carried fear. Keshtar was gone. Its name was removed from trade routes and star charts. But it was not removed from memory. The Valari did not forget easily. Loss stayed with them, heavy and sharp. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion prepared for survival instead of control. Fleets were moved inward. Borders tightened. Observation stations multiplied. Yet nothing appeared. The enemy did not return. That silence hurt more than the attack. Valari scientists worked without rest. They studied the data from the destroyed worlds. They found no energy traces, no heat scars, no weapon marks. Only one shared detail. A moment where physics bent, then snapped. It felt like the universe itself had been used as a weapon. Fear changed the Valari people. They slept less. They gathered in quiet halls. They spoke of old myths they once dismissed. Stories of forces that erased civilizations not out of hate, but habit. Pain spread through the Dominion. And with pain came resolve. The Valari did not scream. They endured. They began to adapt. Instead of louder defenses, they built quieter ones. Instead of stronger shields, they spread their populations. They learned to survive without being seen. It went against their nature. But survival demanded change. During this time, the human systems were reviewed again, only as a reference point, only to rule them out. The humans had not advanced. Their technology was uneven. Their fleets were small and unorganized. They fought each other more than the galaxy. From the Valari view, humans were fragile creatures, driven by emotion, short-lived, unstable. No great power had ever risen from such chaos. Still, the silence around human space remained. No signals, no traffic, no noise. That silence began to disturb even the most confident minds. Then something changed. A single Valari listening array detected a signal, not from the destroyed worlds, not from the shadow, but from the edge of human territory. It was not a call for help. It was not a warning. It was data, old data, fragments of recorded space distortion, patterns that matched the destruction of Keshtar. The humans were studying it. This made no sense. They should not have the tools. They should not have survived close contact. They should not even know what to look for. Yet the data was clear. Human machines had observed the shadow and lived. Valari analysts dismissed it at first. Luck, they said. Random chance. But one truth could not be ignored. The humans had not gone silent because they were destroyed. They had gone silent by choice. That realization unsettled the Dominion. Silence, for Valari, meant fear. For humans, it seemed to mean focus. The galaxy remained calm on the surface. Trade continued. Borders held. Empires watched each other. But something new was forming beyond the maps. Not a fleet, not a weapon, but an intention. The same shadow that erased worlds had moved on, believing its work unnoticed. Believing the weak had learned nothing. It was wrong. And far away, in the quiet dark, humanity began to understand what had been taken from them. And the silence started to feel very dangerous. Part 3, the pain that teaches survival. The shadow did not know it had left survivors. It had moved through space as it always did. Silent, unseen, and certain. For the Valari Dominion, the fear remained sharp. But fear slowly turned into something else. Preparation. They no longer searched for the enemy. They searched for themselves. For weaknesses they had ignored for too long. Worlds were spread apart. Power was divided. No single loss would break them again. Still, deep inside, the Valari felt a truth they did not want to accept. They were reacting, not leading. Beyond Valari space, inside human territory, pain took a different shape. Humanity had found the lost colonies. Not destroyed, not erased, but emptied. Stations drifted with lights still on. Homes were intact. Personal items untouched. Entire populations were gone. No bodies. No signs of struggle. Only absence. Humans did not cry out to the galaxy. They did not ask for help. They recorded everything. Every empty hallway. Every silent child's room. Every unanswered signal. Pain settled into them, slow and deep. Human leaders argued. Scientists worked. Engineers failed again and again. They did not understand the enemy. But they understood loss. And loss had always been their teacher. Human ships were weak compared to alien fleets. Human weapons were loud and crude. Human shields broke too easily. So they stopped trying to match alien strength. They studied the silence instead. They replayed old sensor logs. They slowed time. They examined the moments where reality bent. Every failure cost lives. Test crews vanished. Experimental ships never returned. Still, the humans continued. To stop was worse than death. The Valari watched from afar. They saw human experiments and shook their heads. Such waste. Such stubbornness. From the Valari view, humans were burning themselves out, throwing bodies at an impossible problem. But humans had never feared pain. Pain was familiar. Where other species avoided loss, humans absorbed it, carried it, used it. Slowly, patterns appeared. The shadow did not attack randomly. It followed mass, energy flow, and stillness. It struck where life was quiet and predictable. Humans learned this the hard way. They began to move constantly. Cities shifted orbit. Stations changed shape. Signals pulsed with controlled noise. Life became motion. The shadow passed near a human system again. This time, something changed. Human sensors did not fail. They screamed. Reality bent. Space twisted. And human instruments stayed online long enough to record it. For the first time, the shadow was seen. Not clearly, not fully, but enough. Enough to know it was not a force of nature. Enough to know it could be tracked. That knowledge came at a cost. The system was lost. Every ship was destroyed. No one survived. But the data did. Across human space, grief turned into focus. The loss was not meaningless. It was a step forward. The Valari received fragments of the same data. They did not understand how humans survived long enough to capture it. They did not understand why humans kept moving forward. To them, survival meant safety. To humans, survival meant progress. The galaxy remained unaware. The shadow continued its path, confident, untouched. It did not see the shift. It did not notice that one species no longer feared it, only studied it. And as the humans finished assembling the pattern, they reached a terrifying conclusion. The shadow was not hunting worlds. It was testing them. And the test was almost over. Hashtag part 4. When the galaxy looked away. The galaxy did not notice the change. Trade lanes stayed open. Old rivalries continued. Powerful empires watched each other, not the edges of space. The Valari Dominion sent warnings. Quiet ones, careful ones. They spoke of erased worlds and silent death. But most listened with doubt. Fear was seen as weakness. And the Valari had never sounded afraid before. Other alien powers laughed. They believed the Dominion had finally met a force it could not control. They whispered that the Valari age was ending, that their order was failing. As for humans, they were barely mentioned. A minor species. Too young, too divided, too loud in their own conflicts to matter. Reports of human losses were dismissed. Small systems vanishing meant nothing. Young races burned out all the time. The galaxy looked away. Inside human space, suffering became routine. Entire crews volunteered for missions with low return odds. They understood the cost before launch. They went anyway. Human society changed. Not through speeches or pride, but through exhaustion and resolve. Children grew up seeing empty stars on their maps. Families learned to grieve without funerals, because there were no bodies to bury. Still, no one spoke of surrender. Human technology did not leap forward. It crawled, built on broken ships and failed designs. They lost more systems, more people, more time. Each loss sharpened their understanding. They learned the shadow reacted slowly, that it assumed fear would freeze its prey, that it did not expect resistance. The shadow had erased hundreds of species before, and none had ever followed it. None had ever studied it. Why would humans be different? Valari observers saw the human fleets and felt confusion. The ships looked unfinished, poorly armored, uneven in shape and size. They did not form neat formations. They did not wait for perfect data. They moved early. They moved often. From an alien view, it looked like chaos. Valari analysts concluded the humans were panicking, burning resources in desperate movement, trying to run faster than extinction. They were wrong. Humans were not running. They were learning through movement. Each jump through space fed new data. Each loss revealed how the shadow reacted. Each sacrifice narrowed the unknown. The galaxy continued to laugh, to ignore, to underestimate. Then a quiet shift occurred. A shadow event happened near a trade corridor. Not human, not Valari, a neutral system. This time, the shadow hesitated. Only for a moment, but long enough for sensors across multiple empires to notice something new. The shadow changed course. It avoided an area dense with human movement. Not because it feared them, but because the conditions no longer fit its pattern. Life there was loud, unstable, unpredictable. The shadow preferred silence. This detail passed unnoticed by most, filed as a data error, a natural drift. But the Valari saw it, and the humans confirmed it. For the first time, the enemy had adapted, which meant it had learned something. And if it could learn, it could be challenged. Human planners understood the danger at once. A thinking enemy would not repeat old mistakes. Time was no longer on humanity's side. The shadow had finished testing, somewhere in deep space. It was preparing for something larger, something final. And as human fleets moved into position, knowing they were still weaker, still outmatched, still unseen by the galaxy, one truth became clear. The next encounter would not be silent. Hashtag part 5. The shape of human defiance. The shadow returned sooner than expected. Not to test, not to observe, but to erase. It moved toward a dense region of space. A place filled with human movement, noise, and unstable paths. From the galaxy's view, it looked like a mistake. Humans were placing themselves directly in danger. Alien observers predicted a massacre. They believed the shadow would adjust and wipe out humanity in one clean act. The Valari feared this was the end. They prepared to record another extinction. Human fleets did not retreat. They did not hide. They spread out. Their ships were different now, still weak by alien standards, still fragile, but no longer passive. Each ship carried redundant systems, manual controls, crude backups built for failure. Human engineers expected things to break, so they planned for breaking. The shadow entered the region. Space bent. Sensors screamed. Reality began to fold inward. Human ships were torn apart. Entire crews vanished in seconds. The cost was terrible, and it was expected. Instead of panic, the fleets adjusted. Routes changed mid-flight. Signals flooded space with controlled chaos. Noise, heat, motion, and false mass. The shadow slowed. Confused. It struck again, but its path was no longer clean. Each attack met resistance from unpredictability. Human ships did not move like prey. They moved like problems. The galaxy watched in disbelief. Humans were still dying, but they were not disappearing quietly. Data poured in from every loss, every distortion, every failure. Human command centers worked without pause, not driven by hope, but by refusal. They refused to stop. They refused to vanish. They refused to be erased without being understood. The shadow changed tactics. It widened its field, attempted full region collapse, a method that had ended civilizations before. This time it failed. Human movement disrupted the balance. The collapse fractured instead of closing. Space tore unevenly, and for the first time, the shadow was damaged. Not destroyed, not defeated, but hurt. The moment was brief, but it changed everything. Volari sensors detected the anomaly. So did every major empire nearby. The impossible had happened. A weak species had forced the shadow to react. Alien laughter stopped. Mockery turned into silence. Human fleets pressed forward. Not celebrating. Not slowing. They knew this was only the beginning. The shadow pulled back. Not fleeing. Repositioning. It had learned the cost of silence. And it was no longer willing to test gently. Human analysts reached a grim conclusion. They had forced the enemy to reveal itself, but also to escalate. Humanity had proven it could interfere. Now it had to survive what came next. Across the galaxy, emergency councils formed. Messages were sent. Warnings spread. For the first time, humans were mentioned by name. Not as victims, but as a variable. As the shadow gathered energy for a final strike, human fleets regrouped. Battered, reduced, still moving. No one spoke of victory, only of endurance. Because humans understood one truth better than any species before them. Winning was not about power. It was about lasting longer than fear. And as the shadow began to bend space on a scale never seen before, a scale meant to end resistance forever, humanity prepared to meet it head-on. The galaxy held its breath. The final test was about to begin.